I have a feeling most everyone knows about Superman, right? I mean, he's a hero. He saves the world from the bad people. Came here from outer space, got superpowers. Isn't it fantastic? I mean, God, he flies and shoots lasers and he does the right thing and saves the day and it's all just yeah. Okay, so full disclosure, I kind of hate Superman. Well, not hate, but okay, so he's basically invincible outside of his whatever his kryptonite is, I forget, but it's always kind of hard to really make interesting circumstances for him. It's been done before, sure, but I've never really been a big fan of superheroes that are just all powerful, with some notable exceptions. That's kind of why watching the Avengers, I always liked Black Widow and Hawkeye. I mean, they're tough and cool, and God knows I can't do flips like her, but God, I wish, please. But even then, the things are dangerous for them. It's risky and vaguely human, and I get that. I like that. I like seeing humanity in these stories. I think that Marvel, generally speaking, is pretty good at delivering this nice push and pull between vulnerability and strength. I think, more to the point, that I've always had kind of an issue with Superman on a moral sense. Man of Steel and subsequently Batman v Superman and Justice League works to portray the man as a god descended upon Earth. He has the power to change the world in whatever way he desires, but because he's such a good person, he only does the right and just thing, and that's fine, but let's talk about Jessica Jones. Jessica Jones, if you're not aware of it already, is about the titular character, a private investigator with an alcohol problem and a serious helping of post-traumatic stress disorder. See, she was abused by this guy Kilgrave, and it messed her up. In season 1, he came back into her life, started terrorizing people, and she had to kill him, but Kilgrave is played by David Tennant, and he's charismatic and yells Jessica a lot, and he's such a messed up villain, so much so that it was something of a major selling point for the show. So when at the end
Smile.
Jessica Jones season 2 didn't have Kilgrave as a major villain, and therefore it's not as great as season 1. Okay, I'm obviously exaggerating, but Tennant's work on season 1 kind of put the show on the map, broadly speaking, and to remove him at the end of season 1 was kind of a bold move, making a not insignificant sect of viewers a little listless to what season 2 could be without our beloved Purple Man. In fact, season 2 has been criticized, in addition to some pacing issues, over the inferior villain choice for season 2, which is to say season 2 doesn't have one. Not really. Now, I'm not saying this is a unified belief, and some critics have praised the direction they took, but I think we can go a little deeper. I think we should talk about the true villain of Jessica Jones Season 2. Before we get started, I do want to point out that I've not seen a lot of the Marvel shows in this universe, but thankfully Season 2 doesn't really need you to have watched more than Season 1, since it pretty much just continues on without Defenders at all, which is a good decision.
Hero isn't a bad word, Jessica. It's just someone who gives a shit and does something about it.
Well, I don't. I don't give a shit.
Yes, you do. You do. It sucks. And it hurts. But you do. You are far more capable than I ever was.
So, let me take a moment to discuss something everyone already knows. Superheroes tend to fight villains. And when I say tend to, I mean almost exclusively. This really shouldn't come as a shock to people, but the superhero format in the years since superhero films and Netflix shows have become really lucrative all follow a template of sorts. It's pretty typical 3-act structure action movie stuff, and that's fine. I'm not saying that the formula is a bad wrong one, but it makes season 2 of Jessica Jones so much more interesting. You can make the argument that by nature of the genre, this direction runs counter to what people come to see, but it's such a targeted conversation on how power affects a person's morality that it's a thing of beauty to wedge this in the middle of Captain America and Iron Man and so on. Let's return to Superman for a second, okay? He descends from another world, is given powers, vows to care for the mortals he loves. He believes in truth, justice, and the American way, and all that good stuff. He's a good man, and more importantly, a moral man. He carries a moral responsibility to do good with his powers, and barring some particular exceptions, he does just that. He shows us that morality is the superior guiding principle, that no matter how much power you have, if you do good deeds with it, you will, by extension, be a good person. Jessica Jones, as a show, hates this idea. In the world of Jessica Jones, power is just that, power. It doesn't carry a moral quality to it, and trying to be moral with this kind of burden on you is really fucking tricky. In fact, the only one really going on about moral imperative in this world is Kilgrave. That's what a moral responsibility looks like in this world. He finds himself elevated above normal people and uses his powers the way he believes is best. He treats his parents with cruelty because he believes it's right for him to do so. He takes what he wants because he feels it is owed to him, and he has the power to make it happen. He stands as a terrifying reminder that power corrupts, and he had to be taken down. And season 1 is so cool, and Jessica Jones does the right thing, and yeah. And then season 2 happens.
Let's start with you. When we got you, you were pretty much a goner. We had to induce a coma after each treatment to manage the side effects. But the way you've come through it, it's mind-blowing.
The mad scientist trope is laughably common in the superhero world. Mad science gone horribly awry is one of 9 standard backgrounds for origin stories, and it's really easy to make a sleazy, mean science man doing mean, bad science for evil. Interestingly enough, Dr. Carl Malice is... Well, it's interesting. Malice is a figure in the comic universe, and he's kind of mostly portrayed as your standard mad scientist. He does villain stuff, and he gets eaten by Carnage, and he's some kind of symbiote villain thing. Dr. Malice in the show, by contrast, saves Jessica and her mother Alyssa's life. It leads to them developing their super strength and also complications with Alyssa's mental health, but there's nothing within the show's narrative that places him in the evil mad scientist crowd outside of, fantasy magic science that leads to super strength. He does what he does to help Alyssa and Jessica, and while he makes the painful decision to keep Alyssa isolated from her daughter, it is for their protection. His surgery magic made Alyssa hard to control, and she's also super strong, and that doesn't tend to go very well. And even here, with our mad scientist, the overarching theme of season 2 starts to piece together. He tried to do the right thing. Speaking of mothers, by the way. The incredibly bold decision to make Jessica's mom the villain of season 2 could on paper be a really contrived one. Family angst is a pretty run-of-the-mill plotline for hero fix, or hell, most action stories by now. Having a family member be the prominent opposition to a character's journey is a really easy way to make a conflict personal. And personal conflicts are great, and if it was handled like most contemporary hero films and TV and zoetropes, it would have been fine, if unremarkable. Alyssa is complicated. How effective her character lands on you depends on the connection to family stuff or what have you. I have what could be called a complicated relationship with my mom and with family in general. It's why I cry so much when watching Spirited Away, so Alyssa hit hard for me. Some elements of her story can feel a bit forced in the beginning. She plays the piano and then destroys the piano, and it's all fine, it's fine. But the real meat of her character comes through when Jess and Alyssa meet and eventually attempt to cohabitate, at least temporarily. It walks a tightrope between Alyssa's crimes, her mental health, her stubbornness, and her ultimate love for her daughter, and her desire to reconnect and have a family again. You get moments where it looks like maybe, just maybe, things are gonna be okay, and it's heart-wrenching when the inevitable reality kicks in. And season 2 evokes family trauma so hauntingly well that I almost dreaded watching the next episode after a while, wondering how much more I can stand to witness in an evening. Obviously not every family stops the bus together, but the interplay between Jess and Alyssa is beautiful and tragic and human in that visceral way that it feels when you have a shouting match with your mother, when you grow up and realize that your mother is a fallible human being and you don't want to face it. You want to go back to when your mother was just this perfect woman who loved you and took care of you, and you can't. Jess can't. In that her mother can bend a car, has committed several murders, and wants to run away and become vigilante hero vagabonds or something, but she also can't go back in the way most people can't. Whatever the reasons, supernatural or otherwise, Jess is an adult with her own life and experiences, and her mother is no longer the person she was from her childhood. I mean, God, even the music Alyssa plays on the piano is almost a tongue-in-cheek jab at their lives. Ain't We Got Fun is in itself a commentary on poverty and class struggles back in the 20s, but here its playful melody and almost bittersweet refrain colors their interactions. If only things were better. Season 1 put her in a situation where she had to confront her abuser. It was difficult and intense and wonderful, and I don't want to decry it or whatever, but being forced to confront your mother is... I mean, it's inspired, right? In a world of villains and doing the right thing and moral good, the big confrontation is between family, and it's imperfect and messy and human, and the right thing gets complicated. Doing the right thing was difficult in Season 1, but it's defined. Kilgrave is abusive and dangerous and can't be helped or reformed, and he needs to be stopped. In the same vein, Alyssa is dangerous, and on some level, it's very likely she can't be helped or reformed, not completely. But the tension lives in the uncertainty of it. Maybe she can be better seems to be a constant thought process in Jess's decisions, until Alyssa's fate is taken out of her hands. Which brings us to...
I had to save you. Jess. Jess. Jess.
Run!
Before you try to get ahead of me and yell about how Trish isn't a villain, you're right, she isn't, but she's indicative of the greater struggle of the season. For some background, Trish has an abusive mother, and she was effectively saved by Jess's intervention and has moved on to be a well-known public figure in her own right, but her inability to escape her mother without Jess's intervention colors her actions throughout the show. It's arguably less explicit in Season 1, where she puts herself in danger over and over to help Jess as much as she can, which can be her protecting her sister. In Season 2, she takes Simpson's drug inhaler thing and even goes as far as kidnapping Dr. Malice in order to get him to do the surgery magic thing on her. She even concludes the dramatic tension of the season by killing Jess's mom, an action met by Jess saying,
I look at you now and all I see is the person who killed my mother.
everyone in the season is simply trying to do the right thing, and whatever progress they make, whatever good they manage to put into the world, it's always complicated. It's always messy. People get hurt. Jess is trying to protect Malcolm from getting involved with Alyssa to the point that he exits her life, tired of being treated as a liability when he was putting in the work tirelessly to help put her life back together. Trish, for all her selfish actions and her grabs at power, does ultimately what Jess could not. And it may even be for the right reasons, but it costs them their relationship. This season works so hard to not let any of these characters fit into good or evil as classifications that it can be understandably alienating. We want to see these people do good things, to be heroes, but I find it incredibly refreshing to have a small part of our big, super-powered hero spectacle mediate on the nature of heroism, like Jessica Jones did. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed. This thing took way longer than I thought it would. I am genuinely sorry about the delay. I promise you I'll get it out at like a more human time next time. But thank you anyway for your support, of course. In particular, I would like to thank Ark Kun, Brandon Haney, Maria Aladren, and Nurai the Red Marked. Like, comment, subscribe to my Patreon, perform ritual offerings in my honor, and I'll see you all next time.